Hey folks, how are you? I'm Autumn, the Yellow Rose Stitcher. This is part 2 of my kitted up projects for my 50 and 50 starts for 2023. If you're new, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Saying if you're new and you haven't seen my other videos, this is August 19th, I think. 2022. Anyway, this is my birthday month, and next year in 2023 I turn 50, and so I've decided for 2023 to start 50 new things. And so this isn't a normal Flosstube video. This is a backup. This is a channel mostly about cross stitch and other crafty endeavors that I take on. But today it's just about a Flosstube extra video. I'm just going to be going through the projects that I have partially kitted up for starts in 2023 for some of my 50 new starts. And I forgot to count. I think there's 28 partially kitted projects, which most of them are just the pattern and fabric. Some of them have some of the threads. So, and I forgot to mention in my last video where I showed you my fully kitted projects, there had been some comments on previous videos if to do a stitch along. So again, if you see anything in this video that you'd like to stitch along with me, or should I say start along, because knowing I won't get very far on these, I'm only going to be stitching on a project for a week and then moving on to something else, a new start. But let me know in the comments if you see something you want to stitch along with me. And I think I've covered everything, hopefully. If you have any questions, let me know. Then we'll get started with my partially kitted things. These things have been sitting around, and I guess it doesn't matter what order I do them in, so we'll just get started. This was a pattern that I bought here recently after the war in the Ukraine started, as a support for Ukraine designers. And I had bought this letter A, and it's got a yellow rose. So I have that, and this fabric was in my stash. It's from Luminous Fiber Arts. Many of you, I probably know her, Misty Purcell, and it was a fabric that I bought some time ago with no project in mind for it, and it's a 32 count Lugana, and the colorway is indigo. So anyway, I thought that I'm not 100% on doing it on this, but I thought that might look pretty. The A is in a dark brown. I think it's the DMC 3031, so it's a dark mocha brown. So anyway, I'll toss the greens on there to make sure that they're going to show up, but I think they will. I think that'll look nice on there. Otherwise, I may just stitch it on white Lugana, but this is the plan for now. So that's the first one. Then another recent purchase that I showed not too long ago was from an Etsy shop. One of a Kind Baby Designs is the name of the Etsy shop, and I asked her to make a design for my hometown of Arlington, and that's what she sent me. And I just have a big hunk of, it's not going to show up, it's just a 18 count Ada white, and it was in my stash, so that's what I'll stitch that on. I'll say some of these I'm just going to use, I prefer to stitch on Lugana or linen, but this was in my stash, so I figured I would use it. Stick that in there. Bear with me and all the crinkling plastic noise. I have to try to keep these things together. The next project I want to do, I want to start or do stuff for converting my son's room, who moved out recently, to a room for grandbabies. And this is a series of patterns, antique toys. I think this is, number 2. Anyway, I've decided to stitch this one with the red bear in the wagon, called Going for a Ride. And again, I just have a big piece of 14 count white Ada that was already in my stash. So that's what I'll stitch that on. And all of these so far are all DMC threads, so I probably have the colors in my stash, or I may wait till a sale and that way they're all kitted together. I don't know. I haven't decided. I'll have to see what I've got put together. And this next one, this is one I'm waffling on. I bought the pattern, the fabric, I think when it came out, and but now I'm not so sure I want to do it. But I know you've probably all seen the Berry Bowl sampler, which was a collaboration from Heartstring Samplery and the Scarlet House. And then I have a piece of 36 count Wren by Picture This Plus, which is one of the called for fabrics, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the left side is on Wren. And anyway, it's one of the sides. So I have the fabric for it, but I don't know, with so many projects, I'm wondering if I should start something so big. Plus, I'd like to change the saying in the middle, which says life is sweeter when shared with friends. Since I'm not stitching it with somebody, I'm just doing it for myself. I don't know what I would change the saying in the middle to, but anyway, there was a glare on that. There's number 3. We'll see about that one. I may switch it out for something smaller. Ooh! The stack fell. Oh dear. Okay. This is another one that I had, piece of fabric I had it with a different pattern, but I've changed my mind on that one and decided to go with this. It's from Stitches Through the Years, is the pattern designer, and I believe I bought this off her Etsy site. It's called Country Life, and it says a little bit of country is good for your soul. I don't know how well that'll show up. Anyway, I just really, really sweet. Loved that, because I'm a wannabe country girl. Would love to be able to move out to the country. But I have a piece of 40 count Stars Hollow by R&R. So that's what I'll stitch that on. And this one calls for mostly Weeks Dye Works. Yeah, it's all Weeks Dye Works except for one Classic Color Works. So another one that I have to get threads for. And as you can see, a fancy project bag. Okay. And this is a pattern. My husband was with me when I went into the Stitch Niche to get something, and I'd been talking about the Celtic Ladies by Lavender and Lace. Anyway, I had pointed out the spring one to him, and he was like, oh yeah, you need to stitch that. So I bought the pattern. If you're not familiar, get the glare. And it needs all DMC. I have not ordered the beads for it. I have ordered fabric for it, and I've ordered a piece of Rainbow Dreams by Silk Weaver, so I'm waiting on that to come. So she's another fancy lady. Oh, hang on a second while I try to pick stuff up off the floor. You've seen this one before. I was going to start this earlier in the summer, but I'm still waiting on my threads. And this is Liberty Hill Farm. I'm going to do the drum. I'm going to do this one with the barn on it. That's the fabric I have for it is Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie. Angel Wing is the color on 32 count. It calls for, I believe, Weeks Dye Works Dove fabric, which is a little bit darker than this, but I still think the colors will look good on there. So when I get the threads, I'm waiting on the threads for that. And these call for this pattern. There was a special thread set that came out when the pattern came out, but I didn't get it. And it was the sulky threads that are on the spool, and I've never tried those before, so I've decided I'm gonna want to try those. Also, somewhere I have to go hunting through my sewing room. At the time, I did buy the pin set that came out with it, so it's lurking around somewhere, and I need to figure out and find it and put it together with that. So that'll be a drum for my drum shelf. Okay. Sorry. All right. And try to even out and do some smaller projects. I have two here that are by JBW Designs. This one's called Oh Christmas Tree. And it calls for a 32 count Belfast. And I'm trying to see what thread. Anyway, and then there's this one that's kind of a similar, same series, Joyous Noel. And I'd like to do both of those. And I have a piece of 28 count linen from Fabrics by Stephanie. It's called Peppermint Sparkle. So I thought that would be pretty. And I'll probably just use either DMC white or the B5200. One of them calls for B5200 and the other one calls for an overdyed. And I can't seem to find where it says. Anyway, figured I'll just use the DMC for those. So a couple of Christmas projects and small. So, see if I can. You'll notice I have several of these in a row are going to be Christmas projects because I've never done very many of them and I need more, or would like to have more Christmas ornaments and things. This is a freebie from Hands On Design called Berries in Bloom. And this is the called for fabric, 32 count vintage Tiffany. And again, Fabrics by Stephanie. So it's a free pattern that you can get on her website. So that'll be another small. And then I'll have lots of this left over to do some other Christmas stitching later on. Someday. Okay. Can't pick it up. Okay. The next two patterns are in a series from Plum Street Samplers, her animal stacks. The first one is Polar Pack with the polar bears. And then I only have one of the threads for that one. And then the rack stack, which is the reindeer. Glare. And I have 5 of the needed threads for that. And her patterns call for 36 count eucalyptus on one and 36 count mermaid's brew. But I ended up getting a fiber on the whim fabric called Dusk that I thought was really pretty and would work for both of those. So that's kind of that bluish green. So I have enough fabric to do both of those on there. Okay. One more pattern on the floor. Sorry. Okay. And this is Modern Folk Embroidery. Fractor Hex Cushion is the name of the pattern. Really, really pretty. Monochrome or monochromatic. And then a couple of years ago, I had bought a hank of silk from Mrs. Sadis, and I don't think I have the label anymore. Anyway, it's called Darling Blue, and my mom and I split the hank. And we were going to stitch the same project. Now I forgot the name of the pattern. My mom ended up stitching it. Anyway, it wasn't quite as bright a blue as I was thinking of for that particular pattern. And then I remembered I had this, so that's what I'm gonna. So I think I'll just go to get a piece of white Lugana to stitch that on. So, and this one is, oh, I don't have all of the pattern printed. I just printed the cover page for that one. So I need to get it printed. So it was a PDF download from his website. Okay, this next one I wanted to start for my mother-in-law, who's a big bird fan. Birds and Berries by the Prairie Schooler. And I think I want to start with the Cardinal. It's the one but I'm not, yeah, it's probably the one. And I just bought a piece of 32 count Belfast natural linen at Hobby Lobby, one of their packaged, because it calls for, what does it call for? Hang on a sec. It calls for a 35 count natural linen. So, same color, just different brand. So, and again, I think this is all DMC. Say, when I made my list of things that I needed to, there was a lot of DMC thread. Yeah, this is all DMC. So, I'll pull what I have and buy what else I need for that one. Another Prairie Schooler. This one is just called Pumpkins. And in this picture, they look really, really red. So I don't know if the originals were, let me pull that out. It's too much of a glare. They look really, really red. And I don't know if the original fabric was quite that red. To me, that red looks like a Christmas red. And pumpkins were stitched on a 32 count Cognac Zweigart Belfast. I ended up getting a 28 count gingerbread from Picture This Plus is what I want to stitch. And I'm thinking I may either start with the owl or this one with the leaves on it. So, haven't fully decided on which one, but one of those is what I want to stitch on that. And I'll say I've got enough fabric here to stitch all of those eventually. Okay. Next is I have another one of this series that's fully kitted in my fully kitted video, the Cottage Garden Samplings, the Songbird series, and this is Autumn Dream. And I bought, let's see, I have some of the called for threads, which are all Weeks Dye Works. So these were the colors that I have. I was looking to see, it calls for 36 count Sanguine linen from Weeks Dye Works, and that's what I bought. So that'll be pretty. I love this whole series. And I say I have a few more of the patterns. I don't have the whole series, but I have several of them. So okay, moving right along. Another fancy lady, a Mirabilia. This one is the first one I ever saw that I knew I really wanted to stitch. It's an out of print chart. I bought mine from a seller on Etsy. It's called Ashley's Roses. And I've ordered a piece, or no, I have the fabric. I bought a piece of Damsel 32 count from Picture This Plus, and this is really going out of my box. And I don't know how well this will show up in the light, but it's got hints of pink and yellow on this like sky blue fabric. So I'm hoping that she'll look good on there. I heard of a website, I've got it written down somewhere, where you can put in your fabric and pattern and it'll show you what it looks like. I need to go out and do that. And then, so I have the beads for her. And there's only 3 beads that you need. So I just need the DMC thread now. and that'll be fully kitted. But out of all the Mirabilias, this one's my favorite. I just think that is so sweet. So, okay. Next is another Plum Street sampler pattern. And I have a few of the patterns in this series as well, but this is the only one. And it's Jeans and Weenies. Just think this whole series is so adorable. I think I have the yellow polka dot bikini one and the ugly sweater or sweater weather one. I don't know if that's all of them, but anyway. It called for 36 count vintage pecan butter, but I ended up buying a piece of 32 count platinum to stitch that on. Sorry. So just a nice neutral. I don't think you can go wrong with platinum from Zweigart. So, and the threads are mostly Classic Colorworks. So I'll need to get that up. But we had a dachshund when I was a kid. And he was already named when we got him, according to, and his name was Pancho, which I always thought it was funny. Had a Mexican or Spanish named dog, German breed dog. Anyway, so that's another partially kitted. And then I think, did this come out last year? It was a fundraiser from Hands On Design, the philanthropic pumpkin. I had ordered that, and it has everything in here but the threads to stitch it with, and it has all the finishing and the linen to stitch on. I just need to get the threads for it, so I want to stitch that one. So, and whoops, don't slide. I guess setting things out on the little side table wasn't a good idea. When I got this pattern, it was a freebie on her website, which I think you'd have to buy the pattern now. Cottage Garden Samplings. I'm covering up the picture. It's called Peace on Earth. Another Christmas piece, part of that Garden Bird series. And it calls for 36 count dove. And I have 32 count dove from Weeks Dye Works. So that's that. Which is a little more green than it looks in the picture, a little more blue. And then I have not all the threads, but some of them. Let's see, put these all together. So mostly, are they mostly? Yeah, they're mostly Gentle Arts threads. Sorry, there's no way to show these off pretty when they're in the little baggies. So, wanted to stitch that. Okay, so that one I just need a few more threads to get, and it'll be ready to go. Okay. This next one is an old Plum Street pattern. I'm not sure what year it came out. I don't know. Colonial Garden. And this one is, take that out. The fabric that it calls for is Black Forest, 36 count Black Forest, which to me in the picture it looked more navy, so that's what I ended up buying, a 32 count navy to stitch it on. And then it calls for NPI silk. So if you watched my last Flosstube video, that these were some of the NPI silks that I bought were for this project. So I think that'll be pretty. I'll say. that bag the pattern was in is falling apart. I'm gonna have to get rid of it. Okay, this is another pattern that calls for NPI 6 silks and a boatload of them. Haven't counted. Let's see, but I've been slowly over the last couple of years, whenever I go into the stitch niche, I would buy a few. But that's the thread list, and so I've been slowly building them up. And this is a pattern I've never ever seen anybody else stitch. I would love to see. And it's an unusual, it's called Swan Garden by Kathy Barrick. I don't know, something about it I just thought was really neat. But I've never seen anybody else stitch it. It'd be interesting to see if anybody else has. Let's see. And it calls for 30, no. Where'd it go? Why is it when you go to look for something you can never find it? It says the design is a reproduction of an antique needlepoint purse that she found in a Pennsylvania antique shop. And it was stitched on 40 count shadow, and I bought 36 count shadow because I didn't really want to stitch it on 40 count. I'm not really sure I want to stitch 36 count on this small of a count, but we'll see. And then that's all the NPI silks I've collected so far. I still have a few more to get. Okay. Say 4 more projects. Okay. Another Mirabilia. This one is called Miss Cherry Blossom. And I say my daughter likes Asian design stuff, so I was thinking of this for her. And I have ordered another piece of silk weaver fabric called Pink Whisper, so I'm waiting on that to come. And I need the DMC threads, but I do have the Krynic for her, and I have the bead pack for her. So DMC and fabric is what I'm waiting on for her. And this is another pattern that I'm waffling on. I'm not quite sure. But I'm going to need to make some final decisions here soon. Which is Heartstring Samplery Consider the Lilies. And I got it when it came out in book form. So, and I have a piece of, where's the tag? This is 36 count antique sampler, and this was a Victorian motto fabric. Thought that was really, really pretty. So I need the threads for this one. But again, I don't know if I want to start another big giant project. I don't know. Decisions. Okay. Then my first Jane Cowley 1850 by the Scarlet House. I think this came out at the market last year. Here. I just love the verse on this one. I like the whole piece, but I say when I do samplers, it's the kind of the verse that attracts me to them. And this one I really liked. And it calls for NPI silk, and those were some of the others I bought here recently. So, and there's a, I don't know, and this calls for, I know, and the fabric's much darker than it looks in the picture, which is an uncommon thing, as you will probably well know. But calls, and I think I called for, well, it called for 46 count Cocoa Linen by Weeks Dye Works, which there was no way on earth I was going to stitch on 46 count, so I got 36 count. but you can see it looks much darker. But the colors on here so far, the colors that I have, it's going to be so pretty. There's no good way to do this. Stitched up. So just have to collect some more NPI silks. Then Heart in Hand, the 2022 Collector's Heart. This is the first one of this series I've ever purchased, and this one was all I liked the saying on it, make life beautiful for others. I really liked that. And so it came with the fabric and the embellishments. So I'll need to get the threads for those. Figured I have to start that in February, I would imagine. Okay, last one. Make sure. Yeah, last one. This is Teresa Kogut, Land That I Love. Really liked this pattern. And I saw Julie from Reflections Framing and Stitching on her YouTube channel. She's stitching hers on a dark blue, and I thought that I really liked the look of that. And then on Instagram I saw a post from Northumberland Sampler House. I bought a piece of 32 count light chamois is the name of her colorway. Anyway, I just thought that would look really pretty on there after seeing Julie's stitched on. Julie's fabric I think is a little darker, and then she also coffee dyed it or coffee tea dyed it. But so I may have to change the blue. I'll have to do a floss toss and lay the blues on here. So there may be some adjustments in the thread, so we'll see, but I think it'll look really good on that blue fabric. So that's it. That's all of my partially kitted projects for my 50 and 50. And I hope you saw something maybe you'd want to stitch along with me. Let me know, and hope you enjoyed seeing those. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. And we'll see you next month in September for my regular Flosstube video. Hope you're doing well. Bye.